Hi, good evening, and welcome to the first episode of Rick's Music Collection. My name is Rick Olivares, and I'm a freelance journalist. I'm also a teacher. I'm also a PR, marketing, and advertising guy. But I love music. Music is one of my first loves next to comic books and sports. I dearly love it, and as you can see from the back, I've got a lot of records. It's about 2,100 records. I've been collecting since I was in, well, fifth grade, but I started buying when I was in sixth grade. So I was getting a lot of stuff from my dad back then, but that's another story. So for the first episode of Rick's music collection, I want to share with you the cassettes and some records. No CDs in this episode. I'll be doing that in another episode. I'll be sharing with you the cassettes and records of the Twisted Red Cross era of the 1980s. Just as a preface to everything, I discovered punk rock through the music of the Ramones. Blitzkrieg Bop, I mean, really, how could I have not heard Blitzkrieg Bop? And I was immediately enthralled by the Ramones. But when I heard Sex Pistols and The Clash, it was just like totally different from what I knew of the Ramones. And the Ramones were like a punkier version of the Beach Boys because there was a lot of harmony, although they could just be as loud and noisy. They'd play, once in a while, they'd go hardcore away from their bubblegum punk rock and all that. But, so that was different. Hearing the British version of it, it was kind of different. But I didn't appreciate the Sex Pistols because they were anarchists. And I thought that they only, just in my opinion, they got a lot of attention for their offstage antics more than their music that I thought was crass. And, The Clash were a punk band for the first album. Then after that, they drifted farther from it. They were incorporating a lot of other genres from reggae to ska to funk into their music. So I don't think that you could characterize them as a punk band anymore. The first one, definitely. And that's why I kind of like The Clash a bit more. But for all intents and purposes, I preferred American punk rock. The scene that was coming out in Los Angeles, you could hear bands like X, Fear, you know, the Circle Jerks. So mm, that was just that just really appealed to me. And then the stuff from Washington, you had Bad Brains, Fugazi, and later on the New York hardcore bands that I absolutely love to this day. Now, that kind of music, with the exception of probably X, the LA punk bands, because I had an uncle who lived in Los Angeles. Excuse me, and I had read about X's debut album, their incredible debut album, Los Angeles. I read about it in Cream magazine and then in Rolling Stone. So I asked my uncle Benji to get me a copy of the record, and he did get me a copy of that record. Yeah, it was just absolutely amazing. Now, um, by the mid 1980s, I had drifted from punk and was getting into more guitar oriented rock of the new wave scene. We're talking about the Smiths. We're talking about REM. I had loved the B-52s, and I was just a massive B-52s fan. I did like the synth new wave music, but by 1985, I just really wasn't fond of it anymore. So that's why I listened to the Smiths and REM. Now, 1986, I remember it very well. One of my really good friends from the Ateneo, his name is Popop Sumulong, and he said, "Hey Rick, Dominic Gamboa, his very good friend and neighbor in Provident Village in Marikina. Uh, his band, his punk band, Betrayed, was putting out a cassette album. I had known Dominic because he was originally my batchmate in Ateneo, and he had a punk band called Absolute Zero, and they were all my classmates, and I did get to see them. But his new band, Betrayed, no, I never saw them. And Pop was telling me about it, and Yeah, this is a time of great political upheaval in our country, and it wasn't easy going out. If I wanted to go out, I had to justify it or even lie about it so my parents wouldn't hassle me. But if something happened, then there was going to be hell to pay. Thankfully, nothing of that sort happened. So anyway, Papa tells me about the cassette album of the trade, and he says he can get one for me. I gave him $100, and about 3 days later, he got me this cassette, Betrayed Then and Now, with its famous or infamous cover, lifted from People's Tonight, featuring uh, the sex bomb actress Vivian Delis. Okay. This is the original release on DMZ cassettes. Okay, because later on this was reprinted under Twisted Red Cross. So this came out ahead of the Twisted Red Cross, and now this was my introduction to hardcore punk. It was my introduction. There it is. So the now version that featured Dominic Gamboa, Buddy Trinidad, Manny Pagsuyo, and Boyd Miguel. They were doing the hardcore stuff, and while the then version with Eddie Shoho on vocals, Buddy on guitars, Chris Carrere, you know, um, and the other dudes, um, they were doing punk definitely, but you could see other influences in there. And I love this. I absolutely love this tape. Um, and even years later when I just saved it, because this is more than just a time capsule for me. This represents a time when I was growing up and I was questioning things. This was a time when during those rallies and political killings and all that, this was something that spoke to me, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And if I'm gonna name my best Filipino rock albums, this has got to be in there. Great. And when Pop got that for me, I was just really ecstatic. And he said, "Hey, there's a lot more. There's a Twisted Red Cross label." And I did get to go with Pop one time, uh, or twice, and twice. The other time was with Doming also. Um, we got to go to one of the Twisted Red Cross shows, and that's where I saw Woods. Um, I saw Urban Bandits, GI and the Idiots, and that was just an eye opener for me because first time to see a mosh pit, and I saw a lot of people, punks, wearing the anarchy sign. Some had mohawks and all that. I had only seen that in Britain. You see pictures of the punks in Britain, but it's my first time to see them here. Now, I did mention the Urban Bandits, and of all the Twisted Red Cross bands, it's the UBs who are my absolute favorite. Here's that tape. Independence Day. It's the Urban Bandits. There's just a Red Cross label. Okay. Flag in the back. Mm-hmm. Side 1 and side 2. There. Lyric sheet and the inlay. Okay. I bought 3 copies of this cassette, not at the same time, one at a time. At the time, if you wanted to buy a copy of this, you had to go to Apple Picker, Apple Picker in Cubao, Camela, or you go to Harrison Plaza. And this is at New Farmers Plaza. And they were, Camela, they sold clothes and they sold some punk attire. they were the first to do shirts where that featured bands like The Clash, The Specials, and all that. And I bought a shirt of The Specials, and I do have a picture of me training for the Ateneo track team at Ultra, wearing the shirt of The Specials. And I had that shirt, believe it or not, up to about 8 years ago. Then, in a moment of madness, I threw it out along with a lot of other stuff, and man, I regret that. I'm usually the guy who keeps everything. I'm the archivist, but I threw it, and I totally regret it. I did throw it away along with some other uh, CDs and stuff that, man, I just totally regret. But anyway, the Urban Bandits, I got it there, and I just fell in love with the album. I thought it was absolutely amazing. It was just really awesome, and my favorites on this one were, you know, Breaking the Wall, Manila Girl, obviously, which Arnold Morales redid, reconfigured for ska with Putra Ska years later. Nagpapapansin-pansin, No Future sa Pader is just my favorite on his album. Blood in Every Heart, which Anoy sings with a lot of passion. This was just great, great. I wore it out by playing it too much that I had to go back and buy a second one. And I wore it out once more, then I bought the third one. And this time you just take a lot more care of it. Just don't just rewind it using a pencil or those Reynolds ball pens back in the day. So you have to take great care. So if I played the tape, I would not rewind it and let it finish. I would do no rewinding or forwarding and just let it go. You know. So this is my all-time favorite um, release from Twisted Red Cross. A couple of other stuff that I have from Twisted Red Cross are the Dead Ends. Okay, so two of their three releases under Twisted Red Cross, I still have them. I did have the whole set of 17 releases from TRC back then, but I lost the bulk of it due to Pandoy time. Moving out of my parents' place, I left a lot of stuff in my parents' place, and I couldn't bring everything to my apartment when I moved. And moving abroad, I didn't know that my mom threw out some stuff, and whatever stuff she didn't throw out, they did not survive the fire that hit my parents' place in 2015. So I lost Complaints of the Dead Ends, which that's their first album, but I do have Second Coming and Damnation. I also have their non-Twisted Red Cross release, Namatay sa Ingay. Okay, and it's the cover. So there. Uh, how am I doing here? Okay, I have that one. You can here's the cassette itself, and it's got the lyric sheets folded up inside. All the lyric sheets are folded inside. It was just amazing, man. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Okay. So it's great to have all this stuff from those days. And there's Katrina's Live, Tamana Away. So this one features Betrayed, Private Stock, GI, and the Idiots and Wounds. There's the tape. And it's got a sticker. You have the lyric sheet, the inlay card. Okay, so happy to still have this stuff. It's just absolutely great. And of course, as I said, they're non-Twisted Red Cross release. Mamatay sa Ingay with Lord De Vera. Their one release with Lord De Vera. And, well, trying to look for copies of the other stuff, I was able to get these bootlegs, reissues, but they're bootlegs. They're not official. Here's the bootleg reissue of the trade. Okay. Urban Bandits, slightly paler in terms of the color. And if you want to look at the interior, it's just different. Okay. Rescue ladders. Now, the original version of this had the twisted Red Cross flag over there. Okay. And also here. Obviously, you see it says reissue. Okay. And the last bootleg that I have is Brave New World Life. Great stuff. Now, a couple of years ago, during a production by Lock and Load, they came out with a special cassette of the Twisted Red Cross years. And I was able to get two copies simply because they're just variants, okay? Here. As you can see, same cover, same photo. It's just that there's a red color for one font and the other one's just white. Okay. The other's difference is the color of the flap on the back with the titles. And the songs that appear here are songs from Betrayed, you have Collision, you have Woods, you have Philippine Violators and Urban Bandits. Okay. So that's how it looks. So I do have two of these ones. Right? Now, I did say I have some records, and these were official reissues. Now, before the Twisted Red Cross, Tommy Tanchanko, the head honcho of Twisted Red Cross, put out Third World Chaos. That was his band, but they were signed by a major label. This is the bootleg copy of it. Right. I was able to get this several years ago. Okay. The bootleg version, this one is not approved. This is the vinyl release of Urban Bandits, and as you can see, Arnold Morales signed this for me. I have two copies of this, and one is unsigned. Okay. Do I intend to let go of it? No, not at all, because this one is signed by Arnold, the other one is unsigned, and that's the one that I play a lot. Okay. Rescue Ladders and Human Barricade, Fatal Response. This one features Dead Ends, GI and the Idiots, Woods, Urban Bandits, and Zoot Suit. Okay. And there's also GI and the Idiots, Fascinating World of Garbage. I have two. I only have two because they're different colored vinyls. Okay. Let's take a look at the difference here. Let's take a look at them. Mm-hmm. I'm the careful sort that I make sure that the vinyl is on a plastic sleeve inside. Okay. So as you can see here, there's a violet splatter version. Okay. I think there are about 4 different color variants of this, but I only have 2. And honestly, that's fine. I don't really need to get all the color variants. If I'm able to get it, good, but I'm not going to actively look for it. It's fine. There's just other stuff to get. So that's one. And I keep all my stuff in non-resealable bags, but thick ones. Because if they're resealable, then every time you open it, like the plastic gets, it gets moved around, and it's not as strong as it once was when you constantly open it. Now, for the other colored vinyl of GI and the Idiots, Fascinating What a Garbage. Here it is. Let me pull it out for you guys. There. Okay. One is like a brownish mocha colored side, and then you have one that's black there. Like I said, there are probably two more colors at the most, but I don't have it, and it's fine. It's really fine. Okay, let me just put it in the bag. I think I have a few more things that I want to share. It's also got cool the lyric sheet, replica of the lyric sheet. As I said earlier, this Twisted Red Cross was largely important in keeping my love for punk rock during the 1980s. And it was the bridge that connected me to the 1990s punk rock revival. And because obviously Twisted Red Cross ended before the 80s ended. But it was my bridge. It's definitely my bridge. Okay. Let me sort this out later. I'm taking a bit too long here. And lastly, there's IOV. This one is a special cover during its launch, and this is just the regular cover. And colored vinyl. This one's signed by two of the members. Okay. Red. This one comes in red splatter. Pretty neat. And does it matter if you get them in color and all that? For me, no. I'm not particular about colored vinyl, which is why I guess you can see from the GI and the Idiots, and I'm not really crazy about getting the other color variants. So why do I have two? Well, that's because the other one with a different color was given to me. That's the simple answer to that one. And let's check out the other version of IOV. It is a really good album. This album, this one's red. Okay. There. Neat colors, right? Neat colors. This is an album that's very, very political and all that. It's about the fear of nuclear war during the time and all that. There's one more that I want to a few more things that I want to show you from that era. And let me get these tapes out of the way. I want to make sure that I don't accidentally drop them and damage the tapes, because these are prized stuff in my collection. Okay. Got some photos here of Dominic Gamboa performing with the Trade. I got another one here with him and Buddy Trinidad. I've got this poster over here from that era. These were photocopied and silk screened, very DIY. Look at how much the entrance is. It's 25 pesos with free beer. That doesn't happen today, right? Or does it? Maybe for some. Now, this is not a print ad, because look, there's nothing in the back. Just part of the DIY culture back then. And this one is really cool. Urban Bandits, Woods, GI and the Idiots in First Blast of 1986. Katrina's in Malate. As you can see, it's this A to Z Records, that record store, that underground record store that was put up by Cesc Rodriguez of Jingle and Lester Croc, the DJ on BZRJ. And they didn't sell records. If you you went there, you choose the songs that you like, and they'll record it for you on cassette. And as I recall, it cost 10 pesos per song. But and it was really a sweet deal because back then they just had a lot of stuff that you would not find locally, or you would only read about in the pages of Cream magazine or Rolling Stone or Flexpop. But after a while, because they were always taping stuff for people, the tape heads weren't sounding very good, and as a result, we got some crappy cassettes. And, the other one I want to show you is Herald X, that zine that was put out then. And this was the Philippines' answer to Maximum Rock and Roll that was coming out of San Francisco. This is the first issue of Herald X. And as you can see, the pages are just really browning and aging and all that. But because this is newsprint, a different kind of newsprint, and it reprints stuff from Maximum Rock and Roll. This one's the Dead Kennedys, but it also has features uh, like this one on Arnold Morales of Urban Bandits. It's also got the trade. You see that. So this is such a cool thing to have, you know, and just part of that era. And I love it after all these years. I still love it. And it was a great time, to be honest. And one that I absolutely relish. And I have a coming vinyl project featuring one of the bands from the 1980s Twisted Red Cross era. We'll probably announce it within the next 2 weeks. And that should be a really cool announcement because you're not going to see this coming. It's something for people who are fans of the punk rock scene back in the 80s. And hopefully it's something that will appeal for a new generation of fans. So there. That's it. There's a lot more that I could share, but I just wanted to touch on these particular ones for the first episode of Rick's Music Collection. It's a Twisted Red Cross era or years. I was in college at the time and discovering all these cool bands, and many of these guys have come to call friends over the years. And now, like I said, I'll be putting out a record from one of the bands during that era. And you know, it's just my way of saying thank you, and it's a dream come true for a fanboy like me. I did mention Apple Picker and Camilla, the last story I'd like to share about that time. And that's where I went to buy punk attire, like leather jackets, those studs that you'd put around your wrist and all that. It's, you know, and I don't remember how much they cost, but I bought one. And I remember going to school wearing it, but taking it off when I got to school because that was not part of the prescribed attire, and it was going to get confiscated. But when I left school, I'd put it on again. Then before I get home, I'd remove it because if my mom sees it, she's going to freak out. She's going to throw it away, and I would hide it in one of my drawers and put it out again. But the thing is, you know, you're constantly wearing it, and you sweat a lot, and then it stinks because it's leather. And then because of the water, the sweat, those metal studs there, they start to corrode a little bit. So you buy a new one. But it was really cool. I just looked like an idiot wearing all that stuff, to be honest, because I was really skinny back then. And going to those shows, the few shows that I went to during the Twisted Red Cross years, their productions, that was my first time to see a mosh pit. And since I was wearing glasses, it was very, very hard because they would target me. So I stayed away from the mosh pit. Yeah, unless if I took off my glasses, I didn't see much. More so if the gigs were at night because I had, you know, my eyesight was just really bad. Um, but it was amazing. It was amazing to see because you only hear about it, you see pictures of it, but to see it right in front of you is a great experience. And to try it out was also a great experience. And I have nothing but fond memories of those days. So anyway, this is the first episode of Rick's Music Collection, the Twisted Red Cross years. When I come back tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing a feature on the CDs from the 1990s alternative music scene. And I might have to do that in two parts because there are just simply way too many CDs that I have from that year. Right? So thanks for watching. Hope that you enjoyed it. Bye bye.